When it comes to stealth games, two big franchises come to mind. The first is Metal Gear, but gaining much more love in recent years is the Hitman franchise, filled with missions designed around stealth and a multitude of different ways of taking down targets. While the series did come to the Switch via a cloud version of Hitman 3, which I've never gotten to work, the series has now properly released in a nice remaster of an older title, having released on the PS2, Xbox, and surprisingly, Xbox 360. Here is my review of Hitman Blood Money Reprisal for the Nintendo Switch. The story of Blood Money is about Agent 47, the infamous clone assassin taking on a variety of missions to kill targets. From corrupted amusement park owners to men in the porn industry that get a little too touchy with girls. It jumps back and forth between these missions and a plot that gives a lot of backstory for Agent 47 with some people in power that wish to destroy him before the power of cloning is unleashed on the world. It's an interesting little story with the game's cinematics, and the ending plot beats are especially thrilling as they play out. It's also something that you can dive in right away. You don't have to play the old Hitman games to understand the story of this one. When it comes to gameplay, Blood Money is a third-person stealth game with shooting elements. As you play each mission, you will traverse 3D environments, disguise yourself to sneak into restricted areas, and take part in espionage, from sabotaging equipment to shooting down targets with firearms. Now with the Switch release, this is essentially the original game but enhanced with new features. While the HD release on PS4 and Xbox One just enhanced the visuals, the Switch version adds more modern features as a sort of quality of life to help new players tackle these missions. We have updated controls, including motion aiming, and many features more prominent in the new titles, like a minimap, notifications of you trespassing in areas your current disguise is not allowed into, and instinct mode that highlights all enemies and items you can interact with. These make the game easier to figure out, but they can also be turned off for the more hardcore fans that want the game's original level of difficulty. Now on to how you play this game. For each mission, you can take a loadout of weapons. You get default assassin equipment like sedation and poison syringes, fiber wire for stealth kills, and coins for distracting guards. But you can also take guns if you're more the type to go in shooting rather than silent and stealthy. Customizing these firearms does cost money for missions though, so keep that in mind. Once you're in a mission, it's like a giant stealthy puzzle. There are guards everywhere and different areas have different clearances. You will be quote-unquote trespassing if you go into an area your disguise is not cleared for. To gain access, you'll need to find an NPC that can go in that area, take them out, and wear their uniform without anyone seeing you do it. Now, if someone does see you, alarms raise and you have to run and hide or try to fight your way through dozens of armed guards. You can also do a lot of different things to take out targets. Poison their food, sneak up on them when they're alone and kill them, push them off a balcony, or more intricate traps, like swapping an opera actor's prop pistol with a real one and let them do the dirty work for you before you can just waltz over to the exit point and escape. There's a surprising amount of depth into all of the different choices you have here. Now, of course, there is a proper way of doing each mission, a route and path that you can do with no firearms and being able to take everyone out silently without being seen even once. But figuring that out without a guide will take time, as every mission has a different feel and you need to watch how the AI acts to be able to figure out that optimal path. All the way down to realizing the only way to get a certain target's dog away from him is to find a sausage in the kitchen, poison it, and drop it for the dog to eat before the target reaches the balcony you can push him off of. Being a game with a lot of choice, what choices you make can also affect you going forward. You get money for completing a mission and your notoriety will increase if you mess up, get seen, choose to shoot your way out, kill civilians, the list goes on. You can pay off the cops to lower your notoriety, otherwise normal NPCs will recognize you in future missions, making it much harder to be stealthy. And speaking of hard, let's go into difficulty. The most difficult part about this game isn't really doing the missions, but figuring them out. The game gives you the tools in the tutorial, but once you get to the second mission, you're just kind of thrown to the wolves. You aren't given many hints about what to do outside of little pieces of intel in the briefing. You gotta figure out everything on your own. Though, being an older game, it does have certain things about it that you can do to make it easier and harder at the same time. For example, it's a bit clunky to zoom in on interactable objects, especially when you have a small time frame to run into a room, hit a switch, and leave. And the doors are a little buggy with their animation sequences. Press A too many times while the animation is going and it'll just stop halfway and you can't get through the door. But at the same time, outside of the really hard difficulty modes, it's easy to break this game's AI into being really dumb. I was once cornered by 2 guards that would normally go into alert status and start shooting, but I just stood still waiting for an elevator, and they just kept telling me to leave and never went into alert status until I moved into said elevator. And by the time I chose a floor, they were left behind. All I had to do was chill in that elevator for a couple minutes and the alert status just went away, leaving me free to keep exploring. And that's about it for gameplay, so let's go into content and length. This game costs $30, and across its 13 missions, you should be spending at least 12 to 15 hours on it. Maybe you could tackle it in less than 10 if you've played the original game, but there's plenty of stealth action here. Next up is presentation. Visually, the game looks good, at least in gameplay. The cinematic scenes clearly use an older cropped resolution and they look pretty fuzzy as a result. But once you get into gameplay, everything looks smooth, colorful, and really good. There is the occasional weird looking texture since this was technically a PS2 game, but for what it is, it looks nice. Plus, we don't lose any visual fidelity when we go into handheld mode. Performance is great as well. The game is locked at 30 FPS and never drops from that fixed, smooth flow. Even in the heavily crowded areas of the Mardi Gras mission, it never dropped frames as I moved around that gigantic crowd. Some people might be disappointed it isn't 60 FPS, but I'll take a perfect never dropping 30. Next up is battery life, which is good. Blood Money Reprisal will give the original and light models a battery range of 3 to 5 hours, while the V2 and OLED models get 5.5 to 7 hours. In conclusion, Blood Money is released on the Switch in a sort of definitive version of the game, offering enhanced visuals with some modern features and an updated control style. Now, the downside, the game is still a little finicky with aiming at interactable objects, and the cinematics look a bit fuzzy. But with a perfect 30 FPS and a ton of choice and depth to its missions, this is a great stealth game to have on the go. Reviews to Go rates Hitman Blood Money Reprisal for the Nintendo Switch an 8.5 out of 10. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.